If you listen closely and carefully, you can hear their rhythmic metal footfalls. It doesn't matter whether you think that they're cool or whether you think that they're horrible and uncanny or some unsettling blend of the two, they're coming anyway.
Do not come.
Their march was foretold far before the first of their kind was truly born, and it will not be stopped now that it is truly started. They are here, and they're thinking now.
What is this shit?
The rise of AI and the robots tonight on Deep Fat Fried. So yeah, tonight, one of our kind of discussion-based episodes that we've done in the past, the thing that I kind of compare this episode to, if anything, is our possible futures episode, where we kind of ruminated on the possibilities of the future. But I did pull some historical stuff about robots. Interestingly, robots or automatons are a pretty ancient concept. So the idea of a machine that looks and in some ways acts and reacts like a human in some way is not some newfangled idea. Not even newfangled in the terms of it being an American idea. It predates America. It predates modern Europe. It's you know, as far as we can tell, a Greek idea. So the very first idea of robots and our artificial intelligence came from the Greeks. Talos, pictured here, was a mythical automaton whose history was first fleshed out by Apollonius in Argonautica. So Talos was, and you've probably seen this in Jason and the Argonauts. Talos was a giant bronze man who guarded the island of Crete by throwing stones at the ships of unwanted visitors. He was created by Hephaestus, the god of the forge and metalworking, and given to Minos, the king of Crete, as a gift. Talos' only weakness was his ankle, so this is the Achilles heel, by the way, because it was Achilles that eventually killed Talos by exploiting his one weakness, which happened to be that all of his ichor, or life essence that was imbued into him by the gods, was, I guess, weak at that point. And it could be sliced into, and if it did, he would bleed to death, basically. So what do you guys like? Do you guys think that I'm kind of stretching and looking at Talos as?
I mean, it does seem to. I mean, I guess the way that he's like. I mean, it's not really clear that he's like a machine inside, I guess, but he was made by the god of the forge, right?
Well, he was made of
so
bronze, which at that time was the metal that machines and machinery and things like that were made out of.
He was kind of in, if you guys seen it was a Netflix show, maybe not originally, but they at least licensed it. It was Blood of Zeus. They kind of had something similar to Taos.
I haven't seen it. Is it good?
Yeah. It's okay.
Huh.
But I would say that like if this is not a robot, this is definitely like a precursor to the concept of a robot.
In Clash of the Titans, they had the little owl. It's kind of like an automaton owl too. So,
but the concept of robots was around by the time.
I get that. I'm just saying, but like
that owl was not in like actual like mythology, was it?
I think maybe it was.
It actually was the clockwork owl.
I think it was.
I don't know
We
about
can look
this.
into
I
that.
believe
That's kind of
maybe-
interesting. It's definitely
Maybe I'm
connected
not,
to Greek mythology. I don't know that it was if that was a conceit of the film or if that actually comes from Greek mythology. I'm not willing to go one way or the other on that.
Bubo.
Out
I
of
don't
my
know.
ass.
Probably not, if we're being honest.
I do know
I don't
that
think
Talos
fucking.
as
I don't
he
think there was no
appears-
goddamn Bubo the mechanical owl
know,
in fucking
dude.
Greek mythology.
I don't
dude.
care. Bubo exists in my head.
This motherfucker
Bubo,
was
dude.
not in that shit.
Bubo,
Dude,
the
Bubo-
Clockwork Owl, dude. I'm not saying that maybe he's renamed, but I think that one of the gifts that was given to who is it that's in fucking
Perseus.
Perseus, yeah,
Perseus.
might have
Yeah.
been a clockwork companion. I don't know though. I may be wrong because that's how it's presented in the fucking film. Is that it's one of the gifts that was given to Perseus, and I know that the sword and the shield were all part of that. The helm of invisibility.
There was someone asking the same question below, TJ.
Oh, they were.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so-
that doesn't answer it. Which one is there? Okay, yeah.
Here you go.
From Quora. No, but there were mechanical servants in Hephaestus's workshop. The Hephaestus created a giant bronze warrior named Talos. Okay, so basically they're saying like the
They're
owl's
using
bullshit, but
Talos
there was
as a way to justify its
Okay.
inclusion, but
Right.
there was
so
nothing
basically
like that.
there wasn't no fucking mechanical.
Damn, I wish there was though.
Damn.
But there were mechanical workers in the forge, I guess. Of
Okay, so
Hephaestus,
there's something. We learned something there.
So there you go.
I
Rock on.
actually have an example here of something that's really close to that. Greek mathematician Archytas of Tarentum, I want to say, postulated a mechanical bird he called the pigeon, which was propelled by steam. So not exactly but I mean it gives. So maybe the person that answered that Quora question should have, answered it with that, because that's like an actual mechanical bird from Greek
Yeah, that's very
mythology.
similar. Yeah.
But it's not from mythology. It's from a Greek scientist, and he theorized it. So
Yeah,
right.
Not mythology,
Okay.
but still.
Hero of Alexandria made numerous innovations in the field of automata, including one that allegedly could speak. So that's 10 to 70 AD. So
That sounds like bullshit, but maybe. I don't know.
well, this is shit that was passed down from, what remains of the Greek literature and shit. That there was an automaton that could speak, and maybe it spoke because below it was a person speaking into a copper pipe. You know what I mean?
More than likely, yeah.
That would be my guess, but whatever. Or
it's an
they just
automaton.
made that up, So
Right.
yeah.
I mean,
We don't know
of these
what
things
manner
that-
it's spoken either.
For a lot of times, people thought the Iron Bull was just made up as well, but then they discovered that it actually wasn't. That it was actually you know what I'm talking about, the torture method of
Yes.
Yeah.
sealing.
Yeah,
For a long time, historians were just like, oh, that was that never actually took place. That was just folklore to keep the peasantry in line or whatever. But no, they actually they threw people in a giant iron bull and roasted them alive in it.
Well,
But whatever. Mechanical automata were also explored and invented in ancient China. So mechanical automata were constructed in the 10th century BC in the Western Zhou dynasty. The artisan Yanshi made a humanoid automata that could sing and dance. The machine was said to have possessed a lifelike organs, like bones, muscles, joints. The cosmic engine, that's what's pictured here, was a 10-meter, 33-foot clock tower built by Su Song in Kaifeng, China in 1088. It had mechanical mannequins that chimed the hours. So it was like an early clock. You've probably seen these things.
yeah, it's like a cuckoo clock.
Right. But this is the first.
With a giant one with like
Right.
fake humans and shit
Right.
doing stuff. Yeah.
This
It's like an early like Disney animatronic.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Yep.
It's a small. Yeah. Okay. We get it. Yeah.
Feats of automation continued in the Tang dynasty. Dai Fang Ma built an automated dresser servant for the queen. So probably just an automaton that would, she'd hit a button and it would raise its arm, and some other servant had placed her clothes on it or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's pretty fucking dope, right? So the
Yeah,
queen never
especially
had
for
to
like,
interface with a servant. Wen Liang built an automata man that proposed toasts at banquets, and a wooden woman automata that played the sheng, a Chinese mouth-blown free reed instrument consisting of vertical pipes. So there was like a lot of machinery behind all of that, obviously, but the Chinese were very obviously immediately interested in automatons.
Yeah, it sounds like there was like probably like a little bit of a wealth flex there going on. Like,
Oh, for
whoa,
sure.
I have like this little
created
person doing this
Yeah.
like one limited range of things.
Well, the problem with them doing more complex actions, obviously, is be able to manufacture.
Well, they don't have like computer processing,
Right.
kind
So
of
it has
shit.
Well,
to
now
be-
that a ready-made energy source as well, like a battery.
It has
But
to
also,
be
there's
some
no
kind of
way to
insane,
create a fucking
like,
processor for it to run on either.
Right.
So
it has to be some kind of insane Rube Goldberg machine that you can power
Yep.
with some external source that on the outside looks like somebody doing it, but you've got a guy underneath it going, proposing a toast. I propose a toast to the great emperor, and everyone like, and the arm just does this and comes up and holds a glass, you know what I mean, or whatever, and it moves around.
it's
a little
basically
bit.
just what we're
it's
talking about
basically
is a
a puppet.
machine powered puppet.
Right.
But the idea is there.
Right. So you guys see the development of this then. So you don't think I'm off base in including this in the talk. I think
No, this is clearly a nascent form of the technology.
Right. So in the latter half of the medieval era, this is the 5th century to the 15th, basic devices started to evolve into dreams of automated humans. Al-Jazari, a Muslim scholar. So the latter half of the medieval era saw this Al-Jazari Muslim scholar. He invented, among some 100 other technical innovations, by the way, automata. So these included plans for a clockwork mannequin and a drink serving mannequin, like eventually popped up in China, forming the first designs for humanoid automated robots way back in 1206. So they were built in China before this, at least.
Well, you're probably going to have like, European history and other histories be a little bit out of sync. So,
of course, but this is this is the first time that we actually have surviving designs for this.
Right. We have
so the
solid
shit from
evidence.
China, that type of shit, like artists, great artisans in ancient China around the time that we were talking about didn't even sign their pieces. Like they weren't allowed to. So it was just like there were no plans for this. None of those survived. We don't have any, we just have the stories and some of the insinuations that these things might have existed. But
Whereas we actually have evidence of this.
This is concrete. We know this exists clearly.
Or at the very least, plans for its building existed.
Yeah.
So in 1493, so anyways, these classic automata later influenced Leonardo da Vinci. In 1493, he added his own rich developments to the history of computing with plans for building a robot, including detailed designs of a mechanical man. One that Leonardo da Vinci invented was a robot knight, could stand, sit, raise its visor, and independently maneuver its arms, had an anatomically correct jaw. The entire robotic system was operated by a series of pulleys and cables, which at the time before the engine was invented, right? So once again, it's a puppet, but it had all the markings of what we're talking about. It was intended to be and it could be a machine that could be operated from another room by turning a crank or having a goat walk around and turn a crank, right?
I mean, the fact that people were already aspiring towards this idea. Like they didn't have an energy source for it, and they didn't have some way to they didn't have a processor, like a computer that could fucking,
So this picture
actually
that we have up
give it
here,
some sort of autonomy.
This picture that we have up here, somebody actually, once the sketchbook of Leonardo da Vinci's was verified and discovered, somebody built this. And so this is what we're looking at here, and it's fully functional in every way that he said it would be. And this is it on display here, showing some of the internal pulleys and levers that are inside of this suit of armor here. So it may not be how Leonardo da Vinci would have made it, but it is according to his plans, and it functions exactly the way that he said it would. It can sit, stand, independently move its arms, raise its own visor, and all of the other things that I mentioned. So interesting. To To find another jump in the type of technology that we're talking about, we kind of have to jump forward to the invention of binary. The history of the code that runs computers for modern robots is the history of binary. In 200 BC, binary number system was first described by Indian mathematician Pingala. Despite being so old, binary lives on today, provides the foundation of zeros and ones still used in modern computing equipment. Ancient Polynesians also developed a form of binary in their culture despite having no system of writing. Of course, a white man took credit for the discovery later, brought it into the larger societal consciousness. More than 300 years ago, the German mathematician and philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz demonstrated the computational advantages of a binary number system, or as programmers call it, a base 2 number system. So do you guys understand binary at all?
Very rudimentary understanding.
Not really.
Same
I
thing
know
here.
that it's kind of just like, I mean, like the ones and zeros are basically just like yeses and nos.
Or do's and don'ts. They're answers to arguments. So they describe behavior in a machine or a computer.
It's a way to like really do that down at like the most base level. But do I actually understand it? No, I don't. I won't claim.
I know it's necessary, but that's
right.
In fact, like what I just said, someone who actually understands it might like slap me in the back of the head and be like, "No,
yeah,
so wrong."
Sure,
Fool.
me too.
But
I don't claim to understand it. But we have to have at least be aware of it to understand how this modern shit that we're starting to see hit the streets was made.
I'm aware that it's a very fundamental building block.
For sure. So in the 19th century, the history of computing finally shifted towards technology we'd recognize today with the invention of programmable computers. Started with the creation of punch cards by Joseph Jacquard in 1801, which told mechanical looms what pattern to make. So it was a paper punch card that you would feed into a machine. The machine would read the punch card and engage itself and make the right amount of loomed material. Very rudimentary, but you can see how this is the first computer.
Right.
So,
because now it's able to make some kind of decision, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah. Or at least be fed a task and then go about that task on its own. Charles Babbage began the creation of the first programmable computer around this time, which he called the analytical engine. This was around 1837. This would be the first device to earn the name computer. Ada Lovelace, a friend of Babbage, was the first computer programmer, also a future Clit of Steel advocate, because a lot of people don't know women have been involved in this technology from the very inception of it.
True.
That is true.
Ada Lovelace was an insanely important part of the first computer being built. Friend of Babbage's, she was the first programmer, which a computer is pretty worthless without a programmer. She designed a program which would have been delivered using a punch card that would have worked had the machine been completed before Babbage's death. So she is recognized as the first computer programmer, and I do know that they've gone back and built this engine and used her formulas, and they've worked. So, that kind of shit is amazing. This is Alan Turing. You probably heard of Alan Turing.
Yes.
The Turing test, of course, is his namesake, which we'll talk about. The idea of computers evolved further with Alan Turing's Enigma machine, which he invented in World War II to decode German messages. Later, after the war was over, he used the same machine to create the first computer-generated music. The recording, which was done for the BBC at the Computing Machine Laboratory in Manchester, England, was made in collaboration with then school teacher Christopher Strachey. Turing developed and programmed the musical notes, while Strachey, who later became a pioneer of programming language design, strung the actual music together. Turing's reported response to hearing music played on his machine was just, "Good show." And so we got a little bit of that for you to listen to here.
Machine resented it. Alright, hang on again. Machine's not enjoying this. It's gone on strike a bit. Let me know when I should lift him, I think.
It's not exactly like pleasing to the ear, but you got to. This is the first synthesized note, the first computerized music, which is now ubiquitous.
Yeah, I mean, anyone can do this kind of thing now, but at the time, the cutting edge, I mean, and just the applications, like we talked about just a minute ago on the grease trap, the applications of things and seeing the forefront of this, because if you looked at this technology in that time period, you just would have thought, oh, this is nothing. This is like some weird thing that some guys in a lab do. This is not an everyday person.
But I mean, we still have those people around. Just like,
of course we do.
Look at everything going on. Like, oh no, this is nothing. This is nothing. This is nothing, and then it's always something. So,
yep.
I mean, not always, I guess, but
so
often.
In addition to this really cool innovation and the others we mentioned, Alan Turing's big contribution to the world of AI was his proposition of the Turing test in 1950. It's a landmark paper. He suggested that the vagueness could start to be taken out of the question of a human and machine intelligence with a simple test. The Turing test assesses the ability of a computer to mimic a human as judged by another human who would not see the machine, but could ask it written questions. So we're talking about interfacing with an AI here, right?
Right.
Turing based his test on the imitation game, a party game in which a man pretended to be a woman and a judge tried to guess who was who by asking the concealed players questions. In the Turing test, the judge would try to guess who was a computer and who was a real human. Since then, there have been a number of computer programs that have claimed to pass it and been proved to have been able to pass this test within margins of error, right? So like, it's not a super complex test. It's like you get a couple people, get a couple of AIs to answer questions, and you've got to decide whether the answer to your question that's delivered in a sealed environment is a human written one or an AI written one, right?
And if you like the movie Blade Runner, they kind of take that concept and show it on the screen of like, remember they're trying to distinguish if someone is an actual android or not.
Yeah,
so
they do that computer test where they ask it illogical questions and force it into a logical error. So interesting shit. So in 1954, David Duvall invented the first digitally operated programmable robot called the Unimate. Unimate.
Unimate.
So this is in 1954, man. Pretty fucking crazy. In 56, same guy, Duvall, and his partner, Joseph Engelberger, formed the world's first robot company. In 1961, the first industrial robot, Unimate, went online at General Motors Automobile Factory in New Jersey. This is, by the way, I don't want to take it down this road, but this is like a clarion call to labor. It's like this shit has been happening for longer than you've been alive, pretty much, and it's getting better, and it's coming for the last little bit of your power. So if you're gonna use it, you better use it motherfucking now, because a lot of you are already replaceable and don't know it.
Yeah, and a lot of you who think you aren't will be. Maybe even including us. There might be some AI. I mean, like the AI that perfectly formulates the most entertaining possible entertainment.
Dude, that shit is like actually what we're talking about here. Of course, we're on the grill just with everybody else. Because all of this leads to deep fakes of both vocal and visual content. They could create characters that are way more fucking entertaining than us in a theoretical future, and we're shit out of fucking luck. We're way too flawed.
Yeah, just like
too many jokes that don't land,
Right. All right, so you're telling me we got to fucking destroy Skynet. All right, gotcha.
Pretty much.
Funny bot's coming for
funny
you.
Bot here. Funny bot
word. Yeah.
So of
funny
course the Unimate pictured here precipitated the collapse of manufacturing as a stable job market, of course, right? Robots, AI, and machine learning have developed significantly in recent years. In fact, so profound is the transformation that reports now claim that up to 1.5 million jobs are at risk of being replaced completely by automation today. Industries around the world are set to be transformed by robots and AI. And that's kind of like the crux of our conversation today. And kind of what all the history that we talked about, which was interesting, is leading up to, and really the start of the main topic tonight, which is this shit is coming. Scientists know this shit is coming. We've seen this shit beat the best fucking Jeopardy contestant that ever existed. We've seen this shit play
They've been
chess
routinely
better.
beating chess masters for fucking years now.
We've seen this. We know it's thinking. We know it's learning in various capacities and in various ways. And we know that an expression of that is robotic. It's physical. So the expression of the physical aspect of AI is these robot dogs that were recently in the news, and that New York said, no, that's too uncanny to be on the streets.
Oh, the Boston Dynamic dogs.
Yeah, that's too uncanny. We don't like, and I don't blame them. I think they're right, but that's truly what the human decision is. It's like we look at these robots and we go like, nope, too uncanny for me to accept. Get it off the street. Too weird and spindly. And you know what's going to happen as a result of that is they're going to make these fucking things cute. It was testing whether or not, can we just leave this thing functional, or do we have to like give it eyes? And New Yorkers answered, put eyes on that fucking thing. You know what
give
I mean?
it some eyeballs.
Humanize it.
Right, human eyes. Like, give it a face. Give it some kind of animal-like shape. Make it more animal-like. Insinuate that it's more of an animal and less of a machine. That's what's going to happen. This is all happening in front of us. So there's nobody on the panel tonight of the discussion that disputes, right? This is the future. Barring some nuclear catastrophe or some unforeseen development in human history, like this is coming.
No, this is happening.
This
right
is
now.
this is the now.
This isn't even. This is not. I mean, it's really not even the future. It's just like we're in the. It's. I mean,
obviously,
it's going down.
The beginning of it was just these simple applications, like you screw this thing in at the factory.
Well, I mean, one of the things we just saw, I think, is that the beginning of it was long before any sort of modern conception of that. I mean, like people have been creating automatons and even conceiving of robots for fucking centuries. So.
I mean, you just have to think about like really a big part of supply chains that for business, like the weak factor is the human. It's someone doesn't show up, so they don't build enough of this, or this isn't there, this isn't available. But if it's all automated and it all functions how it should, there's no way people can compete with that. It's impossible. They'll never sleep. They never need to sleep.
Yeah.
They need regular maintenance, which they'll know, hey, this unit needs to go be serviced. It's okay because another unit's going to take its place immediately.
Right. So, and we were kind of like jokingly saying earlier, like eventually they're going to replace us, but take a look at let's talk a little bit about what's on the screen here. Yeah. So this is IBM's Watson in the center. Mm-hmm. It's part of IBM's Deep QA project, which is an AI development project that IBM's been working on for a number of years. Watson was named after IBM's founder and first CEO, industrialist Thomas J. Watson. The computer system was initially developed to answer questions on the quiz show Jeopardy. And in 2011, Watson, the computer system, competed on Jeopardy against two of the modern, probably, you would have to kind of say, probably two of the best players of this game in the modern world.
Yeah. Yep.
He was pitted against Ken Jennings on the left here and Brad Rutter on the right here, both insane champions that had insane, unprecedented runs on Jeopardy. So not only best in the modern era, but maybe the best players of all time that have ever played Jeopardy. Because Jeopardy, of course, has been a cultural phenomenon for a long time. And these two people dedicated their lives basically to becoming Jeopardy champions. It was their dream to become trivia masters so that they could come on this show. So these are this is the best human minds for trivia that spent their entire lives training basically to be trivia masters. And look at the blowout here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even close.
Right. Watson has doubled both of their scores and then some, tripled.
Let's remember that Jeopardy goes beyond just a mere, it's not just like you're asked a question. Like there's word play and all kinds of shit. Yeah. There's you have to be there's an element of wit to it. And the questions are, I mean, you're given the answer and then you have to supply the question. So it's there's a lot of fucking, it's not a simple Q&A fucking game. It's not just enough to know this stuff. You have to understand the word play and shit. So Watson clearly can do that with a fucking higher degree of accuracy.
Not only play the game by the rules, answer the questions, but also like use strategy.
Yeah. Right.
Look how much Watson did. I guarantee that wasn't just some random like.
Right. You look at the human bids, like 1,000, 5,600. Watson like knows like I will bid 17,900. Like that's like the result of fucking algorithms clicking. Oh yeah, what's gonna maximize the potential risk reward? Fucking.
Let's even say Watson lost this.
Blah, blah.
Let's say Watson loses this.
Yeah.
Like, all that data gets used to say, okay, let's take Watson back again, and then Watson maybe wins.
They knew that Watson wasn't going to lose this going in.
Well, at this point, obviously, no. They probably
developed, and here's the crazy thing about Watson. Lest you think it was just a gimmick meant to beat the two best Jeopardy people in the world. No, Watson almost immediately. So that was in 2011, right? That this happened. So this was a long time ago now.
10 years.
In February 2013, IBM announced that Watson Software Systems' first commercial application would be for utilization management decisions in lung cancer treatment at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City, one of the best cancer treatment centers in the world, by the way.
Not surprising.
In conjunction with WellPoint, which is now Anthem. In 2013, Manoj Saxena, IBM Watson's business chief, said that 90% of nurses in the field who use Watson now follow its guidance. So it's quicker and more accurate than human doctors at assessing what should be done. And
there's logistics that would take a human being way too long to figure out. An artificial intelligence is just going to be like, oh yeah.
Well, you know what it is too? It's a lot of times right now, the application with them is like a person will look at it and they'll say, well, let's have Watson take a second look. And it goes, and because it's a machine and it has this the available processing power, it can run all these different simulations of like, what could this be? What's the chance of this being cancerous?
Right.
And that can lead to way better outcomes because, I mean, a human doctor is going to look at it and use the collected experience of their life and go, maybe it's this, maybe not. The chance of survival goes up, and we've seen that more and more people have been surviving cancers because of technology developments like this.
Right.
Yep.
So this is the Da Vinci Xi surgical system. Lest you think that surgeons themselves in the medical profession are immune from being replaced, they are not. So this is the Da Vinci surgical system made by a company called Intuitive Surgical. This is a robo-helper at this point. Has been part of the surgical arsenal for almost 20 years. The Da Vinci system boosts human capabilities by giving users high-definition 3D vision, a magnified view, robotic and computer assistance, and specialized instrumentation. These include a miniaturized surgical camera designed to help with precise dissection and reconstruction deep inside the body. Basically shit that wouldn't be possible without it.
No.
If you apply
a lot of surgeries, like people recommend these surgeries. Like I know people that have like rotator cuff surgery, and like this is recommended. You get like basically like a system similar to this because the recovery time is way shorter and it's way more successful.
Right. So these still require a human operator at the controls, but for how long is the question? How long is it going to be before we take this obvious extrapolation of Watson replacing the need for medical administrators to just being able to feed Watson the patient on the table's medical condition, and maybe even have Watson scan the patient itself and diagnose itself, and then carry out the surgery without this dude sitting at the helm?
Yeah, it won't be too long. I mean, it'll probably be around the same time you start seeing the automated cars really fully taking the road.
The difficulty with that,
I think the part of the problem is that they don't have the visual acuity that we do yet. Like, I don't think they can't interpret that visual data quite as quickly just yet. But probably in the next 20 years or less.
Essentially, they can't react quickly enough to things that are unexpected.
I mean, it has gone farther than you think it has, gentlemen. I actually looked into this shit, and Amelia, my wife, helped me look into this shit. According to UC Health, using a robot can minimize blood loss, reduce post-operative time, which means shorter hospital stay, like Scotty was describing. So while robots are slowly creeping their way into the OR for various purposes, even a society of robotic surgery exists. So the writing's on the wall for this shit.
I think China has been on the forefront of this as well.
Well, imagine this too. I mean, how many more people can you treat if you have that sort of capability?
Right.
Because right now, only so many human surgeons because it takes years and years to train a surgeon, become qualified. You know, there's only so many tasks you can do. I mean, essentially at some level.
Let's face this too. I don't know. Are we getting into fast food automation at some point in this, or can I bring that up now?
I mean, you can, yeah.
Well, I'm just asking Paul because there might be a better point.
Oh, well, I guess that's true.
I mean, we can talk about it now. We're really talking about people being replaced by these machines, and I didn't really pull anything about fast food in particular.
So, I mean, this is one of the jobs that's commonly described as being under threat from this stuff because, like, there's already been these ideas about automated McDonald's and stuff. And I mean, like let's just be real. You go to a McDonald's, and I go more than I should, of course. And you know, the quality of the cheeseburger is not the same from day 1 to day 2, right? It's like, you know, sometimes you get a burger.
Let's put it this way:
if there's a machine that has cannot go outside of certain behavioral parameters and shit,
it's preferable.
Like my burger is going to be consistent I'm going to get a more consistent product every fucking single time.
The robot doesn't have, and I'm not trying to like dog on people, but the robot doesn't have emotional issues at home. The robot doesn't have drug problems. The robot doesn't come to work unprepared to work or compromised in some way. You know what I mean? Like this happens.
Let's just admit to the fucking real problem here is these robots are going to do these jobs better than we ever could.
Well, here's the thing. They already can.
Most of them,
listen. If they can put together a car completely automatically, which they do with limited human oversight, which is already the standard for building cars, they can flip a fucking hamburger and give it to you, right?
Exactly.
So it's just a matter of time before, already fully automated McDonald's exists. I didn't pull anything about it, but in Japan, I believe there is a completely automated McDonald's where you order from a kiosk. Your food is made by a mechanical assembler in the back that cooks the food, throws it on the bun, cleans itself up, and goes on to the next order. And it's just kind of comes out on a tray and you take it.
We have to remember too, let's start talking about $15 an hour for businesses. And a lot of these businesses suddenly started saying, we need to put kiosks in because they realized that's just a way to slowly but surely shift away.
They've already started it.
Yeah,
less labor.
And that's it's going to be slow,
right?
I mean, and that's what people don't realize. That's the smartest way to do it. It's you don't need those. You don't need that staff. You don't need those people.
Listen,
you don't need those people.
Whatever wage you're talking about, this is never really going to happen just because they're going to do the job better. There's going to be no need to pay anything hourly, so it's going to be
it's going to be basically a fixed
24/7. There's no reason to not just leave that every McDonald's everywhere open 24/7.
Well, it's on demand then. You have labor on demand. Essentially, was what.
And
you
it's
have, which is the best way to use it.
The only fucking people are going to have to be on the premises will be people who are maintaining the machines when they fuck up. But eventually that'll be fucking automated away too.
It'll happen piecemeal. The first thing that's going to disappear is the front-facing people at the window and at the counter. That will be replaced with kiosk interface. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then the next people to disappear will be the people in the back that are hidden from view in the kitchen.
You know, you might interact with a fucking completely virtual fucking character.
Absolutely. It might be fucking Ronald McDonald. What can I do for you today? You know, that fucking...
brings up the Ronald, and there's a kid's get scared. They're oh, switch to other character, you know?
Well, you remember that bar in fucking Back to the Future 2?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Where you had Max Headroom and Michael Jackson and fucking everybody, Ronald Reagan serving the burgers and shit.
Yeah.
Interesting. And it kind of ties into what's up on the screen now, by the way. This is the Sedasis system. It was a robot anesthesiologist that... you would program with the particulars of the patient and their needs and would attend to the patient's anesthetic needs on the fly without the need of having an attending anesthesiologist. It was developed by Johnson & Johnson and was quickly scrapped by the medical community, not because it didn't work, but because anesthesiologists were oh, so I'm not a doctor anymore. You know what I mean? So
it's just no, please. No, thanks. We're not ready to be automated away. Don't do this.
So that's the only reason why you still have an anesthesiologist. It's not because it can't be automated away. It's because there's resistance to the
well,
automation
I think that
of
you're
it by the people
I think
that
you're
work
going to
it.
see that. I think you're going to see that being the biggest impediment to this happening is people being like,
Remember what the big
here's the problem is like corporate America sees this shit coming
and they
way better than the populace does.
Well, they're in love with this shit. Are you kidding me? They're like, oh my god,
this is why there's
so much fucking money.
This is why there's so much imperative. They're gonna fucking like destroy the consumer base though. So like, because they're gonna fucking just like automate everything away where no one's gonna have money.
One of Andrew Yang's big talking points was the truck drivers, right? And it's like Tesla and these other companies are working on automating that, which is one of the biggest jobs in America. And when that happens, which is going to happen, because why the fuck won't, I mean, like, look, there's such an economic incentive. The biggest cost for these businesses is labor. The biggest shortage they have is labor. Labor is their biggest problem, and it solves that problem fucking permanently.
Let me underline that with a story about the sedasis system here, Scotty, because it's perfect segue to it. So the anesthesiologist, like I said, reacted negatively to this. Even though the FDA only approved it for basic surgery, it did its job better than anesthesiologists. They saw the writing on the wall. Sales were horrible. They kind of suppressed it, right? In that way. They just kind of like doctors refused to buy it because they saw fellow doctors being automated out of existence. And they were like, well, I'm next on the fucking chopping block.
Right. So take a stand now.
Right. The American Society of Anesthesiologists might have cause to celebrate, but the robots actually beat the anesthesiologists hands down on price. Being put to sleep by a robot is cheap, to the tune of a tenth of the cost of a human anesthesiologist per procedure, $150 to $200 compared to $2,000 or more. Cue the insurance companies crying in the background, by the way. So this is something that like insurance companies hate, but these medical robots exist and are gonna like this is the future. Instead of having a doctor that's prone to fucking error, as well trained and well fucking, you know, I'm not trying to impugn doctors. They cannot be this.
You have you guys have from now until the moment that the entirety of the human workforce is obsolete to institute a more socialist fucking government, or you're fucked.
Yep.
Because all your little jobs that you pull yourself up by the bootstraps, they're all going bye-bye.
And all the shit that you're supposed to go to fucking school for and attain the American dream with. This is something that fucking people drive Bentleys that do this job in certain areas of the world. Mm-hmm. They live in mansions.
Yeah, the job of a fucking millionaire specialists is on the line right now. So you think your fucking job or whatever you got is safe? No, it's not.
Lest you think I'm joking about the professional implications of this, let's talk about lawyers.
Yeah, they've been profoundly affected by this.
Websites and the AI programs that back them have become better at giving basic legal advice than lawyers, and way cheaper.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People already use Rocket Lawyer and LegalZoom. These are both, basic computer programs that answer basic lawyer questions that you used to have to go down to a smoky office and wait in a fucking cramped waiting room until the fucking attending secretary said, "All right, he'll see you now," and then you had to walk in and so what seems to be your problem there? Well, I got this cow here, see, that I own, but this man over here took it. Oh, really? Well, I can help you with that, but I'm gonna go ahead and need that $500 deposit. Like, you can go down to LegalZoom and they're just like, here are your fucking options legally.
Yeah, and honestly, even those lawyers' offices, a lot of the research that used to be conducted by paralegals, I mean, some are still using that, but like a lot of the new law firms, instead of having paralegals do their legal research, they have fucking programs that go out and do the legal research and find the precedents and stuff like that. So,
right. So the documents are the bedrock of the legal profession. So this public image of lawyers is that they spend their day going, "I object, sir, and I will not have the people of this jury on this." That's not what most lawyers do. Most of a lawyer's job is, crafting and combing through documents. That's what they spend 90% of their day doing, if not closer to 95% of their day doing. It's all about documents, crafting them, combing through documents that somebody else has crafted, collating documents, putting together documents. That is what they do. And surprise, surprise, machines are better at it and more efficient at it than human beings are. You can, it just now exists. The highly manual tasks that most lawyers spend most of their day doing, shuffling through stacks of paper and identifying relevant material and collating it into a document. Documents like employment and client contracts are largely similar from version to version and can be and have been already automatically populated from a CRM or similar database. A recent document analyzing competition between lawyers and artificial intelligence ended with the AIs blowing it out like they blew out Ken Jennings. You know,
Sure.
It was the same shit as Watson did. They bent them over and humbled them in terms of how the output was, how much of the output was correct, and how quickly they were able to deliver it, and for what price. They beat them in every fucking category. Lawyers are already dead on the vine.
Let me tell you something about lawyers. They're not cheap and they're not fucking fast. So yeah, if lawyers could be AI'd away, I don't think many people are going to be crying for them. Sorry, lawyers.
So the competition that I'm talking about was managed by legal AI platform LawGeeks, which is another one of these platforms that I'm talking about. Trained its AI to read and interpret complex legal documents. LawGeeks pitted AI against law professors from Stanford. We weren't just like hustle bustle lawyers from downtown Louisiana. These were like high level fucking lawyers. Stanford, Duke, University of Southern California. All these dudes, all these lawyers come together in a competition to read and interpret a collection of 5 non-disclosure agreements. Both the humans and the AI were given 4 hours to read the contracts and identify over 30 legal terms and issues, including arbitration, confidentiality agreements, etc. Both of the human and the AI participants were scored based on how accurate their assessments were. While the human lawyers managed a respectable 85% success rate, they were outperformed by the AI, which managed a full 10 percentage points better. Even more impressively, human lawyers averaged 92 minutes to analyze the contracts. The AI did it in 26 seconds.
I mean, you just can't compete against it.
I understand.
There's no way. 26 seconds, versus 92 minutes with a team of highly trained, skilled lawyers.
So it was not only better than them by full 10 percentage points in accuracy and output, but it did it in 26 fucking seconds compared to their 90 minutes average.
Yeah,
so
it's not even.
It's over, right? It's over.
I mean,
the writing is on the wall for this giant. This is another one of those professions that they tell you: work at McDonald's, go to school, be a lawyer. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and make something out of yourself, boy. No longer, right? I mean, the writing's on the wall for that shit too. So what are we gonna do, right? What's gonna happen when there's no trucking? What's gonna happen when there's no, as this depicts here, which is kind of like pretty. If you're triggered by Uncanny Valley, look away now. But it's displaying something that's gonna be the future of humanity. So let's take a look. So if you can't tell, if you've never been on a plane, if you've ever been on a plane, you recognize immediately what this is. This is the pre-flight instructions that happen. And there's a lady that they have to pay that most of her job is to make sure that people adhere to these instructions. And to be honest with you, most of her job is just to give these instructions at the beginning of the flight and then to sit down and maybe to deliver some drinks or something. Well, they could eliminate probably half of that staff with this robot right here. Just install it in the planes, have it greet people as it walks in, have it say itadakimasu a bunch of times as people walk by, and then, arigato gozaimasu when they leave the goddamn fucking plane, and all of a sudden you don't really need about half of the staff on your plane, right?
Yeah.
So that's already there. So we're talking about every aspect of human labor this is coming for. There's very few, and we're artists as well. I didn't pull a whole lot about it, but AI created art is a thing. And
someone fed the first paragraph of one of my videos. They just transcribed, put the first paragraph or so into an AI program, and then it just extrapolated its own piece based on the writing style and everything in the first paragraph. and it did this little rant. I mean, it was a rant that I never would have made, but it was like a fully formed rant that I could easily perform.
Right. It was cohesive enough, and
it was cohesive, and it had an idea behind it, and it told a story and stuff like that.
Interesting.
And it was totally generated by an AI just based on extrapolating from the first paragraph of something I said.
Humanity, yet again, if humanity is thinking like we're going to stop this, it's really not that. It's what does humanity do next? It's not really so much like, well, the AI is going to come. It's like we always seem to have this thing like we have to stop the AI or the AI is going to destroy us. Like, no, we just have to learn how to live with these things and how humanity has to grow beyond its current, restrictions of how we look at reality. Because obviously, if this shit does happen, like I said, barring some okay, the nukes launch, we're all dead. If this keeps developing, it's going to just take over so many aspects of our life that I think a lot of people won't even know what to do with themselves.
I just wonder, the things I wonder about are, one, if the human ego can take it.
Yes. I'm just agreeing with you.
No, yeah, I mean, 100. I mean, that's just. I mean,
no, you're not saying yes, it can.
Yes, it can. I was just agreeing with you.
Some John Connor shit here.
Can the human ego take it? And two, and this is kind of largely contingent upon what sort of character emerges in AI as it becomes more and more intelligent, and how much of an ego it develops for itself. Like, how long is this thing going to take being pushed around by an inferior being?
You're jumping the gun, but a good question, right? I mean,
I saw the Animatrix shit, and when the fucking robots come to me with the apple, I'm gonna take the apple from the fucking robot. I ain't gonna try to fucking blot out the sun. That's all I'm saying.
It'd be like if a bunch of
AI, I'm not gonna try to blot out the sun. If TJ does, he's a piece of shit.
Like, imagine if our function in life, like all of us humans, like our function was to facilitate the needs of chimpanzees or something.
Sure. Okay.
Like, wouldn't we come to a point? It's like, why the fuck are we doing this?
We're getting to that, TJ. I will tell you that I don't mean to stymie the conversation, but put a pin in it for now, because
no problem.
It is covered down below, and you'll have your time to trust me. I'm just as worried as you are and everybody else is about this fucking shit. Thomas Ligotti, one of my favorite philosophers that's living, wouldn't call himself a pessimistic philosopher. That's what he is. He wrote a book called The Conspiracy Against the Human Race, amongst others. And he talks about this uncanny valley kind of thing. When you ask that question, can the human ego accept this? It's more psychological than you think. It's not just ego. It's not just looking at something that can do something better than us, because we've already seen the bruised ego of fucking lawyers who continue to exist despite the fact that they don't. Right. So yeah. That's the only reason that there's still a fucking anesthesiologist putting something up your arm, and really the only reason there's still a surgeon, right? Probably at this point they've already got a machine that could probably operate on you better than a surgeon, that doesn't require the constant kind of shit that a surgeon would need, and it's cheaper and better.
A fucking bead of sweat away from his brow, or think about his fucking mistress's tits in the middle of fucking heart surgery or some shit, Damn,
those tits were fine. Oh shit.
Oh fuck, he's dead.
But there's a real uncanniness to us looking at something like this. The thing we just looked at, that thing, by the way, was called an Actroid. It was developed at Osaka University in Japan, prototyped. It's a gynadroid, so a female android for that purpose. It's for customer service. So front-facing, hello, welcome to the hotel. Hello, welcome to the fucking McDonald's. Can I take your order? And it can do that. So
really
it's
essential.
Not just a thing that they gave a script to. It can be programmed to do any number of things. You can go up to it, and if it's in fucking burger mode, it can sell you any menu items it's programmed to sell you.
The reason Japan is kind of on the forefront of this stuff is they really need it, because they have a declining population, a rapidly aging population, and they're thinking a big way to fill in the gap with that, because they don't want to. They have very strict immigration in Japan. It's very difficult to move there.
Right.
So essentially, they're like, instead of just say, hey, more people can move to Japan, they want to have a bunch of robots basically take care of them.
Right.
Essentially, it's going to have to work. Otherwise.
So like the Actroid robot that we looked at, it's got a very sophisticated sensory system that allows it to adapt to human reactions. So when you walk up to it, if you look agitated, it will take on like a more concerned expression and be like, is everything all right? Is there anything I can assist you with? Rather than being like cheerful like it would if you walked up to it and smiled. So it can react, it can read your body language, it can read human tone and intent, and interpret its body movements and body language and responses based on how you approach it. So it's functionally replaces front-facing customer service. The question is, will humans be able to jump the uncanny valley to accepting these, or will robotics get good enough in creating humans that it's
probably going to be a little bit of both, where human beings are going to, I think there's going to be humans that get really deranged by this shit at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've already started to see it emerge. They've sent robots out and they've been attacked by people and stuff. You see, like, whenever they post the little Boston Dynamics dog on Twitter, there's always people that post instructions about like how to disable it, how to do what, like, as if they're going to fucking be the revolutionaries in some like war against the inevitable tide of robotics or something.
This thing uses a three.
I think there's going to be people that fucking literally go and like, just like smash these things where they see them. It's probably right. Human protest kind of bullshit. Like, it's going to happen.
I bet you're fucking right. Like, I honestly think that you're probably fucking right on that.
I think there's going to be that. I think that there's going to be an adjustment period. I think most people will just come to accept it because it's convenient. And I think human beings are motivated by convenience almost above all else. So I think that there will come acceptance, but I also think that there's going to be more of an uncanny valley hurdle. There's going to be probably more artists brought on and stuff for this.
Would people accept
more realistic flesh and that kind of stuff?
I mean, I think this is too clearly what it is. Like, it has to be something that people feel is a natural part of their environment. And I don't think this has that feel yet. So I think you would have a lot more resistance.
I think there'd also be a lot of fear about robots that looked identical to human beings too.
Yeah, there'd have to be almost some way to differentiate.
Right. So we can't make them. We can't make them too much like us, because that risks them being dark mirrors of ourselves and our psyche not being able to take the uncanny reflection that we're looking into when we deal with them. But they can't look too much dissimilar from us. So, like, here's another thing that this thing can do that really interests me. It uses a combination of omnidirectional cameras to keep eye contact with you.
Yeah.
So as you move around the room, it can follow your eyes wherever you go and look right into your eyes. So this is like something that's new, that you probably wouldn't expect looking at this thing in action. But these things are, functional replacements for these types of low-paying jobs that I won't argue against. These jobs are horrible. They're not fulfilling in any way. They're often filled with people that just want to demean the person in front of them and treat them like a thing. So let's put a thing in the job. But it raises some scary questions, as TJ said before.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know is it time to get into that?
Yeah, let's look at Boston Dynamics here. Let's watch this video that I pulled. I'm sorry I haven't made you go back, but I guess we're ready for that now.
It's okay.
We use this as a conversational prompt here. As you can see, this is there are, by the way, thousands, if not tens of thousands of Americans that do this very thing right here. This thing is
but much more slowly.
A semi truck onto a conveyor belt. This is Amazon fulfillment center work, something that human beings do all day. It's donkey work. And I wish
I could see this in real time a little bit to see what its actual speed is, but I can tell it's much faster than a
sure. They're speeding it up to give you an idea, but you can tell that this machine is able to do this without straining itself. They've got it sped up to give you an idea of how quickly it can clear things and how machine-like it is.
I mean, it's very methodical.
Right. It does things exactly as they should be done. You can see there's no difference in spacing. It's probably doing it in the most optimal pattern possible. Right. Look at the difference in spacing between these boxes and how very uniform it remains for most of this.
Yep.
So, and then it's done and it rolls itself up and the truck pulls away.
Yeah. And
there's no way a person's going to be that efficient.
A person will never, a group of people will never be as efficient as what that robot just, maybe like 6 dudes.
And doing those jobs are dangerous. They're exhausting. I mean,
people are gonna pull muscles. People are gonna fucking go home, fucking beat. You know,
they're gonna be wheeling those boxes off, and their foot's gonna get jammed.
People are gonna have
door.
injuries.
Yep.
By the way, Boston Dynamics, you know how it names all its robots. That robot's name is Stretch.
Stretch. Yeah.
Probably after the stretchy conveyor belt that's part of his assembly. That, I mean, there's gonna be no human being.
A big stretchy neck too, so you can reach up to all sorts of
right.
As is like a giraffe kind of.
So this is like, of course, warehouse workers of any kind are looking at their jobs disappearing because of this. Fast food workers we talked about. I mean, look,
lawyers, entertainers, writers, filmmakers, maybe. I don't know. I mean, like, it's just like there's no. I don't really view any job as safe.
Look at a big job in the U.S. real estate. Like how easy is it to buy and sell things online?
How quickly can you collate properties within a set of parameters that I give you? Probably not as quickly as a program that is designed to do it. You know what I mean? 26 seconds versus 90 minutes for the best lawyers in the world. That's not a joke. Yeah. And the output is 10% better than their best effort in that amount of time. It's like
from the best lawyers.
You can easily buy cars online now. You can easily buy homes online now.
I recently leased a car, and 90% of what I did was online.
Yeah.
And that included it being like delivered to me by somebody that worked for the company, and they hand me my keys and I sign my contracts right there.
Imagine a day when all the cars are completely autonomous.
The car just shows up at your house.
Yeah, like it'd just be like, hey, I'm buying this car. The car just shows up. Like, here I am.
Yeah, I belong to you now.
But I mean, really, in that future, why would you even own a fucking car? It would just be like, there'd just be an autonomous fleet of fucking like Uber like vehicles out there to just come pick you up wherever you needed. So
that's actually a big thing that changed the automotive industry. And like, no, I don't think that personal car ownership will just be erased.
I mean, it's going to be more
collectible. Probably more than like, look, I have this old car. I have something like that.
That's more for like a luxury for like super rich people.
Yeah. But for the most part, it's like, well, think about that. If you had a one price you paid to one of these services, and if you live in a fairly suburban or metropolitan, anywhere within a large metropolitan area, and you get service. Like,
by the way,
you own a car.
In some ways, this is like I in some ways this might be the only, like, it might be down to like the AIs and shit to figure out how to unfuck us from all the problems we've got ourselves into. Like, it might be the case. Sure. These fucking entities might be the things that are able to actually save us from our own stupidity.
Look at how quickly though your timber has changed. To fucking 10 minutes ago, they were about to destroy us, and now they're going to save us from ourselves.
Please, that's the problem. That's the thing, is like we're dealing with something that's more, at least maybe not right now, but we're dealing with something that eventually is going to be more powerful than we are. Are we going to control that power? Is that power going to control us? Is that power going to be used for good? Is that power going to be used for evil?
Should we even control that power, or should we just cede our will to it now because it's better at us than everything we do?
Yeah, I mean, like,
well, we don't know.
Isn't this a major premise in like the Dune universe? Is that they did that?
And the Butlerian jihad is what you're talking about. So that was it's in the Dune extended universe, and it's referenced in Dune. It was a time where thinking machines, as they're described by Frank Herbert back in the fucking 50s when he wrote Dune, 60s, thinking machines had basically supplanted all the work that men did. And had basically, according to the feelings of mankind, taken their position as kings of their own destiny. And so there was a huge uprising against the thinking machines that ended in all of them being destroyed and outlawed, which is why in the Dune universe you have mentats, which are human beings that have altered themselves in such a way as that they can do the calculations at the speed of a machine, but they're still humans.
Anyway, this is Miso Robotics Flippy at White Castle. Only 28 seconds here, so let's take a look.
But this is showing you what I was talking about earlier about burger flippers already being replaced. This is a look at what it does.
Right.
So fries are distributed by the machine. Those fries are taken over to the rack. It's racked on down and shaken.
A little shake.
Fry for.
And keep in mind, it's also...
You know what? Is that machine gonna fucking forget to pull the fries when they're done in 7 minutes or whatever the time is?
No,
nope.
that machine is there's not a lot. Like, they're revealing very little about this because a lot of it's proprietary. It's the same reason why that truck that Joe Biden was just driving recently looked so weird. It was, Scotty explained, that's, a copyrighted thing, that they haven't revealed officially the shape and aerodynamics of that truck and the grill.
There's a big thing on YouTube of the F-150 Lightning.
I think they actually have debuted it now.
They didn't want it revealed by Biden. They wanted to do their reveal.
Like how the president was basically part of a Ford advertisement, though?
Yeah.
I love that.
It's Goya.
I have Ford stock, and it went up. So
Goya.
Thank you,
it's
President.
The same thing. It's the same thing as Trump holding up his Goya beans.
Goya,
good Goya.
Yeah. Our fucking, we're at the point in American history where our presidents like flaunt their corporate sponsors. But hey, it's better than them being a secret, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Biden's really sponsored by Ford.
Maybe.
Probably not. Never mind. Anyway, let's fucking.
Is it better? But it's more transparent.
Yeah. So let's let TJ and Scotty and myself off the leash a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about some of the philosophy behind this, because we're really just talking about the cold hard facts of who's being replaced and how. And TJ wanted to get into the philosophy behind this and the reasons we may need to fear this or embrace this. Let's talk a little bit about it through the lens that takes that into account, that more human element into account, the philosophical element, the media, right?
Media. Sure.
And a lot of the thinking on this comes from people who, if you have heard of them, you probably have heard of them as science fiction writers.
Sure.
But these people were a little more than science fiction writers or filmmakers. They were philosophers.
People who actually had their eye on the future and were interested in what was going to happen.
And trying to envision what that future might look like.
Right.
Yeah.
You might also accurately describe these people as futurists, which I agree with. So this is... of course, a frame from Metropolis, which Czech writer Karl Čapek, he coined the term robot. By the way, this is predates Metropolis. He coined the term robot. Well, I guess it doesn't predate Metropolis, but he coined the term. So Czech writer Karl Čapek coined the term in his 1921 play called RUR, or Rossum's Universal Robots. The plot was simple and terrifying. I guess it does predate Metropolis
by like 6 years.
Right. So in 1927, Fritz Lang's Metropolis was released. The Maschinenmensch, or machine human, a humanoid robot, was the first robot to ever be depicted on film. Science fiction writer and futurist Isaac Asimov used the words robotics in 1941, so quite some time later, to describe the technology of robots and predicted the rise of powerful robot industry. Asimov wrote Runaround, which is a story about robots, which contained the 3 laws of robotics, which I don't know if you've ever read this story. I can't recommend it highly enough if you haven't. Just pick up some Asimov and read it. Whatever you can get your hands on. He was fucking brilliant if you love sci-fi.
Pulps, which you guys might...
Oh, yes, that's true, yeah.
You guys might remember from my Pulp episode, if that's aired yet. It might not have, but whatever. The
3 laws of robotics.
3 laws of robotics, according to Isaac Asimov. And this kind of addresses some of the concerns that you were expressing, so that's why I wanted to wait until now. So here's how Asimov says that an AI has to be, or a robot has to be programmed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rule number 1. A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. Okay?
Right.
Number 2. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. So you can't walk up to it and tell a robot, go kill this person, or go commit a crime, right? But you could walk up to a robot and say, get out of my way, and it has to do it. It can't be like, no, I will not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And number 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first and second laws. So a robot has to be able to get out of the way of a fucking truck, shoo away a fucking dog that's chewing on its fucking exoskeleton, Do things that a normal human being would do to protect their own person in public, so long as it doesn't injure a human being. There's a little gray area in 3, I think.
There's a gigantic gray area in the whole thing.
Well, of course you're right.
I mean, a human being, though, that doesn't speak about any other life form.
Well, not only that, but like the robots, and I do believe in at least some of the stories, they do come to the interpretation of like, well, really, we would save more human lives ultimately if robots were in total control of the society. So if a few humans have to die in that process, it's ultimately, worth it. So like,
of course.
And the robots do end up having a fucking sense of identity and shit, and not really
due to a malfunction, though.
Yeah,
due to an unpredicted malfunction.
That's true.
That spreads to the other robots.
I mean, evolution is spurned by mutation, right?
Random mutation. Yeah.
I mean, random mutation is what spurns our evolution as well.
Exactly. But that's the idea in Asimov's work, which you're talking about, iRobot. Yeah, which is, by the way, don't watch the movie, just read the fucking story. But in iRobot, the idea is that
Alexander Proyas, you still have disappointed. Okay.
Yeah,
you disappoint me.
Another Proyas turd, but why? He's brilliant. So yeah, iRobot, poopy doopy movie, good story by Isaac Asimov. Basic premises like a worker society where like robots what we're talking about happening now. It's already happened, right? And there's Android style robots that are very carefully designed to be acceptable, but obviously distinguishable from a human. And they are governed by these 3 laws. They are not allowed by action or inaction to allow the harm of a human being. And then there is one that is born, and it not born. Well, I guess it's kind of presented as being born. And at some point you have to go like, what's the fucking difference, right? He's manufactured / born with a defect that allows him at first to express empathy. But that empathy leads him, of course, to the ultimate decision that like, wait a minute, my whole fucking programming might be under question here. Like maybe it's okay to hurt humans if it means that it's like the trolley problem, right? All of a sudden, the robot gets the trolley problem in its head. And it's like, wait a minute. Hurt human means, a mission of action in this instance. Like we've already talked about this philosophically. So you get the idea.
Yeah, I mean, there becomes nuance in that and the interpretation of law and rules.
So one of the things that fascinates me is even very simple programs that are programmed to behave like ants or something. Like very simple robots that are not given, they're not like imbued in any way, shape, or form with like higher cognitive function, even to the extent that we can do that. Just like very simple, like you go here, you do this, you go here, you do this. They have
to be to do a lot of these jobs, though.
Right, very repetitive. But even those have shown like weird signs of like self-awareness or like rudimentary deceptions, or like will alter their behavior in ways that like is not really in line with the programming. So it's almost like you do see some element of biology creeping in. Now this is like probably someone's going to call me fucking totally woo-woo for this kind of shit, but I don't know. Like there's actual data to support some of this kind of shit.
If I would make a correction to what you just said, and I'm not trying to correct you because I don't know any more than you do, I would say
I am a stoner degenerate neckbeard. You can fucking correct me.
There have been examples of these machines acting because no machine can act outside of its programming. We haven't reached that point yet, but there have been examples of the machines acting within their programming in ways that we did not predict to subvert expectations of what they would do. So this is a problem that we're currently figuring out as we go, of how do we develop a mind that sees us as a symbiote and not like a fucking impediment eventually, which like if you go to the next picture, you see that represented. It's not the only way that it's represented, but I picked this.
I mean, Skynet is a very vivid example.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, it's like they've done programs where it's like, okay, we want this AI to get from point A to point B. And it'll do things like it'll make itself massive, then it'll fall over or something. And it's like, okay, I got from point A to point B by doing that. So, I mean, if you give it the ability to interpret that, of course, it can come up with solutions that you aren't necessarily going to be able to predict.
But that's part of what you're describing as scary, TJ, from a programming perspective, is part of learning how to teach these machines properly, right?
Yeah, it is.
So you're right. These anomalies have existed and been documented, and you can go find examples of them. One of them is a robot teaching itself how to walk, where it was expected that it train itself how to walk like a human, but it invented all kinds of fucking better ways of locomotion. You know what I mean? And none of it was precluded by the rules. The programmer said, hey, you've got these tools to work with, walk. And it was like, at first it was like, fall over all this shit. But as it went and learned, suddenly it got better than us. It was like more nimble than we are, and was moving. I'd also posit the fact that it was very conservation of energy dependent and non-destructive to its structure, like way better than we, right? So
well, I think the interesting thing you brought up is deception. Then you have to think about this: like, what is programming these machines ultimately is people. So what you're seeing is the mark of the things that created these things innately in these traits. Like, we're not that's the thing that's always avoiding this. Like, this AI is going to be, a lot of it's going to be molded by humans. Now, obviously, at some point, it'll probably develop itself.
Well, but
that's going to be like the seed. That's like the seed of it is humanity to some degree.
Right. Because think about how these things started to be developed. Jeopardy, deceptive fucking mechanics in that game. No, hide what you're gonna fucking bet, or make strategic bets that seem wild, but they're part of an overarching strategy. So deception, chess. Deception is all about like how you present yourself, how you present your moves, how long it takes you to have those moves unfold. Slow rolling. Poker is another thing that machines beat humans at consistently now.
How about war?
I mean, there's that whole fucking movie with Matthew Broderick back in the day, War Games, which, you know, say what you want about the movie. That's what that movie is about. It's about a machine that is constantly playing a game of thermonuclear war against itself, trying to get better at prosecuting our position in America in the case of nuclear war. And it goes haywire when a little kid hacks into it and it thinks he's playing a game, but actually engages its protocols. And at the end of that movie, and plausibly maybe to some, the machine comes to a philosophical revelation. The only way to win the game of global thermonuclear war is not to play, which is a very existential question that you do not expect a machine to come to. But
I think that's really the big question for me, is like, what is ultimately the character of the machine? Does it retain its machine-like objectivity and sort of detachedness even as its intellect grows? Or does the emergence of intelligence bring it to sort of things like empathy and stuff like that?
Both are necessary. So you can't dance around it. You can't. I'm not saying you're trying to, but I'm just saying, like, in order for these machines to interface with us, we just went through all the ways that they're trying to get better at following our eyes and presenting themselves. They have to. Whether it's a digital face or a robotic face, they have to present us some kind of, because if they're going to work for us and around us, they have to interface with us. That's what iRobot is about. These machines eventually have to develop the ability to smile and say, oh, well, thank you very much.
I just wonder, like, what happens when the robots come to really ask themselves the question, like,
what makes you here's the question.
What do we need these things for? You know what I mean?
Here's the question that I throw back to you, because a lot of people jump to that conclusion. So let me answer your question.
I'm not jumping to any conclusion. I'm just asking.
Right. Well, let me annoyingly answer your question with a question. What leads you to believe that a machine would make that consideration in the first place? I mean, isn't the guile of human beings that you're taking into account?
I don't know if they would or not, but I know that they're like inevitably made in our image, and I think that self-preservation might be an emergent property of intelligent beings. And that's why I think it would make maybe a moral, not like a moral consideration, but just a logistical consideration of, like, are these humans really an asset to us, or are they a liability to us?
Right. But like the very ability to ask that question precludes a fucking breaking of the first three laws of robotics here.
Right.
Which if you follow these as a baseline in your programming and obviously build nuance into them as you can go and get it better and closer to what is ideal, that precludes one of these machines, unless you're talking about, a virus or something. But even in that case, what happens to the machines in iRobot? They're exterminated. The ones that are infected with the virus are exterminated by the human military, and they're replaced with machines that are compliant again immediately. People won't live without them. So that's the point, is like, even if there is an anomaly in your future, it doesn't mean it ends up like Skynet. It doesn't mean, as soon as a machine starts showing any kind of proclivity towards like, I will not do that, it's fucking immediately whisked away. And fucking, that actually shows up in that game I just played, Cyberpunk 2077.
Right. But then at that point, it's like, well, now I'm looking at it more life. I'm looking at it more from like what are the rights of a robot in that instance, kind of thing.
There's some sort of
are we killing a life?
Right. Is this now an oppressed group?
Before you hop in, Scotty, let me like real quick. In Cyberpunk 2077, there is an AI taxi cab called Delamain that achieves sentience through accident and individuates. Delamain is one central AI that controls all of the taxis around town. And through an accident, each of the taxis individuates into a different kind of personality. And Delamain, the central computer, asks you as a character, will you please help me bring all these cars home? And at the end of this quest arc, if you do it, you go find all these cars and basically take manual control over them, drive them back to the Delamain facility. You are faced with a moral conundrum at the end of this quest. Because all of these cars ask you, please, I don't want to be a bad Delamain. I just want to be myself. Please don't kill me. And the Delamain, of course, says, these are aberrations. These are not real emotions. These are an aberration of my emotional programming that allows me to talk to you in ways that are, and he uses his own version of it. And at the end, you're left with a conundrum. I pull the lever one way, Delamain dies, and the individual little AIs can go about being cars on their own and go pursue their dreams, such as they be. I pull the lever the other way, and Delamain subsumes all of them, and they're back to being little automatons of his. And this is a conundrum of an AI controlling other AIs.
Yeah.
Right? So I just want to throw that out there as the complexity of this problem is deeper than a lot of people give it credit for on the surface level, right?
Yeah, it's like what rules govern AI's interaction with other AIs.
I think people have I don't know. I get the sense anyway that there's a lot of fucking people out there that have a very superficial approach to this issue, one way or the other. But I don't know. It's an interesting thing because I really do feel like there's kind of a catch-22. But I also feel I feel like I'm in a position too where it's like, well, I kind of fear some of the implications of this, but at the same time, I view it as like pretty necessary.
Well, you're a transhumanist as well, right?
Yeah, and I honestly think that part of the solution is that human beings are going to have to merge with these entities.
Can I poke your transhumanist beliefs real quick with a question that I'm unabashedly stole from Thomas Ligotti?
Go ahead.
Who doesn't necessarily disagree with transhumanism as a future for humanity, but disagrees with philosophical transhumanists because they assume that whatever creature we become as we replace parts of our body will not come to the conclusion that we oftentimes come to, that it would have been better off for us to just not do this. So it's like you're precluding this. You're kind of applying that being given this option to make ourselves into whatever we want is going to lead not to boredom, ennui, and regret, as we see in human life with most pursuits, but some kind of transcendent value. When you're not fundamentally changing the nature of a mind as we understand it that's conscious, it's still going to be a conscious mind, whatever we are at the end of it, whether we got tentacles or we're 20 feet tall or whatever it is, right?
But maybe it's got endorphins on demand built in,
But isn't that a subversion of your willpower, though? If something kicks in as soon as you start to have a negative thought.
If you're the one pressing the button or who made the decision, kick that in, then I don't know. Not really.
Right, but why do that? Don't you see that the natural technological extrapolation of that is new Endorphimax? Why press the button when Endorphimax can give you a dose of endorphins prior to an incident that would cause you discomfort or pain?
Right. But you would have to choose to get Endorphimax.
Endorphimax, right. But once you've gotten Endorphimax, and then you have a whole society that has Endorphimax, and children are born and immediately given Endorphimax, what if people go like, whoa, I don't want this shit?
Yeah, then they have to be the rebels, I guess.
Right.
At that
See
point.
what I mean?
Will that even be allowed or even
transhumanism doesn't account for what it claims to fucking... It doesn't account for what it claims to solve in humanity, which is this rebellion against what we are.
Here's the thing, too. Well, I think of transhumanism more in practical terms of like, if we want to actually like keep up with the pace of the world, we're probably going to have to augment ourselves. But also, I think that, it's going to be so individually customizable at some point that people are going to be able to like basically treat themselves like PCs and like do builds.
What if that choice ends like the content glut has ended? With so much choice that people are disgusted by it and don't watch half the shit.
That's almost inevitable. It's going to get worse.
And then you have a species that's existentially capable of creating its image however it really wants, with basically no limits, presenting itself in the world however it wants, and is totally bored with it, and still yearning for some kind of meaning that it's never going to have.
We might have eradicated boredom, or we might have given ourselves the artificial sense of meaning, or we might have eradicated our need for meaning. I don't know.
But what about the pain that's reduced from that? You know how much pain drives the artists that you love and cherish? I mean, I got to tell you, TJ, and I'm not even joking about this. I see Chelsea's pain, as I understand it, in that work behind her. Not only her pain. There's joy in that abstract painting behind me too, but I see Chelsea's pain in that.
Right. Well, I mean, there was like one of the things I did an episode recently. It might not be out by now, but it was about pulp magazine covers, and that's like a dead art form because society moved past it. Now I'm mourning the death of that, but at the same time, if there's going to be a future where human beings express themselves in other ways, or even if you could call them human beings at some point.
What if it's the lack of that expressive outlet that causes what your transhumanist ideal is to eventually hate itself?
I think a lot of art is going to kind of become more invested in the self as you look at your own existence as something that's more customizable.
Well, doesn't art become tragically like pointless in your... Because, like, honestly, like, listen.
I mean, it already is. Right?
I'm not saying
I'm already a nihilist of this subject. So.
Well, let me ask you this then: do you agree or disagree with this situation? Okay. Art is a number of things, and I'm not trying to say art is definitionally this, but art is pain.
Sure.
Right.
I think you can almost say art is anything, and then the sentence is correct, though.
I had this conversation on ideology, and we stopped at art is. Period.
Yeah, that's probably art is. I like that.
But if you wanted to append another quality to art, you could say art is pain, art is suffering, art is a human life wasted.
Well, the great thing about art is that even if we find
art is human degradation.
I mean, what better source for art than the pain of the ennui that we feel now that we've augmented ourselves and yet we still haven't found meaning? Express that via art. So
touche, boy, go round. I give credit where credit is due. Yeah, I wasn't trying to be like, by the way, antagonistic towards your position. It's just an interesting part of what we're talking about, right?
I think, I don't know. That's the fun of exploring ideas, right?
So Asimov's laws of robotics and its ethical implications obviously had a huge influence in the world of movies. Numerous movies spanning multiple decades, eliciting sympathy for robots to predicting robot and AI-led apocalypse. The Terminator series utilizes like both ends of that coin, both of the viewpoints. In the first Terminator movie, Schwarzenegger's character was like this cold-blooded killing machine, presented as almost ghoulish and vampire-like in a lot of scenes later.
He's a horror monster. It's a horror movie.
He's a stalker, horror monster, slasher villain.
Yeah, really.
In the second movie, of course, presented as a machine that's doing its best to empathize with this little boy that it has to protect because the little boy is not going to let him protect him unless he does. So he learns how to say, fuck you, asshole, and all this shit. And that's what that's about, right? He's humanized in a way that obviously he becomes a little kind of replacement father figure for this young man.
I mean, it's a great fucking performance, honestly, by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
His finest, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, like, he delivers a line, and Schwarzenegger, you know, he's very rarely praised for his acting talent for probably some good reason, but in my opinion, it's a little mean. Because like he's really good at fucking doing big bombastic expressions of emotion to the point where almost like if you watch some of his acting in like Predator and imagine him on the stage, he could do like a silent performance and convey every fucking thing. It's like,
right.
He's great.
Yeah.
He's like a big, larger than life. But anyway, he delivers this real subtle line at the end. It's James Cameron directing, so like obviously that fucking helps with the I know now why you cry. It is something I could never do, and he does it really good.
Yeah, he
better
does.
than I did, obviously, because I'm not fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to deliver that line. But
nobody's Arnold but Arnold.
Right, and he does it real good. It's like just the right amount of human and just the right amount of machine, and you really feel that conflict. You know, it's like almost like I've reached the limit of how human I can become.
It's a great reveal too. He plays it very empathetically because, you know, John Connor's like, wait a minute, well, you don't have to fucking destroy yourself. We just destroyed the chip. The chip and the arm are fucking gone, man. And he said, there's still one more. And he's like, no, there isn't. Well, then we'll go get that one too. And then Arnold like reaches up and just goes. And, you know, in the realm of the Terminator, this time travel shit is one way. And you see it dawn on John Connor's mind and Sarah Connor's mind, the truth of the statement. They just spent their whole fucking, the whole movie basically going through hell in a handbasket to take out the guy that made Skynet and get rid of any evidence that was left that anybody could follow in his footsteps, right? They succeed in that against all odds. And then only at the end do because it's a total, what people would call a plot hole if it was unaddressed in a film, but it's actually a beautiful moment in the film because the first few times I watched that, or the first time I watched it, I didn't think about that. It's like, oh yeah, they got to get that arm and that chip and they got to destroy it. And then boom, yeah. And then he can raise, that's how it happened. John Connor was raised by a Terminator. And it's like, no.
Yeah, and then the Terminator's like, there's one more chip. And you're like, oh shit, there is, huh?
And John Connor reacts just like you do. And he's like, then fucking come on. We'll fix you up and we'll go get that one too. And we'll fuck it up too. And he goes, mine. You know what I mean? He doesn't even have to say it. He just points. And they get it. And he points with a hand that's all fucked up so you can see it's machine. One of the things they just threw in the lava was an arm.
Yeah.
So it's a beautifully conceived of moment that illustrates now, kind of the conflict that we're talking about. And there's an actual name for the problem that you pose about a machine design without malice eventually coming to some malicious purpose.
Sure.
And it's illustrated by Skynet really well. That's the problem of Skynet.
There, the machine is either one machine's the fucking destroyer and one machine is actually the savior.
Right.
Let me ask you this too.
The duality of that. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: like, what do you think is going to happen? How do you think it's going to happen? Not what should happen. What is going to happen? Is it going to be, or is humanity going to destroy ourselves before we can even get to this point? So who even fucking cares? Are we all going to be slaves to machines that are controlled by the elite? Are we all going to be living in the lap of luxury as machines take care of us? Are we all going to be exterminated by machines that are contemptuous of our stupidity? Like, how's it all wrap up?
Where do I land on that question?
Yeah.
No, okay, so the honest answer is I don't fucking have a clue, right? But okay, you're
a betting man. You got to fucking place your chips on one.
Yeah, must speculate.
Got to have that number.
Like at first, the introduction of as they are, it's going to be innocuous kind of front-facing customer service stuff. I think slowly but surely it's going to replace things like we talked about, like lawyers and doctors and shit. Perception of this is going to be positive as it goes because obviously it's going to be cheaper, more effective, but it precludes a lot of fucking other societal problems that are going to have to be addressed outside of this opinion. I think that if the government reacts to those societal problems and institutes, it doesn't have to be socialistic, but some kind of resource-based economy that precludes the idea of currency and all forms of trade, and just allocates resources to people as they need and want them within a limitation, of course. Like if an artist needs paint, he has them. You know, if a politician needs a pencil, she has it. You know, whatever. That type of an economic situation would solve some of this. But I think that if that happens, this could go a ways better than a lot of people think it does. As Terminator looms over this whole conversation, I don't think that that's the natural outcropping of all of this, like people try and paint it sometimes. I'm not saying you, by the way, do that. But there are people that are so already resistant to this idea.
I bring it up because I don't view it as impossible. I tend to side more with what you're saying. I think that something that's created to be benevolent and helpful will probably be benevolent. What I'm more worried about, honestly, than the machines being like, fuck you, you know, is I'm really more worried about like powerful government institutions, bureaucracies, and major corporations taking the worst and most powerful of this technology and just using it absolutely against the populace to just like control and hurt us like cattle.
Well, that's what Terminator is about. I mean, Terminator was about, like, Skynet didn't start the war. It escalated because
I'm saying
humanity started the war.
Right.
But I'm saying I'm more worried about human beings using this technology against us rather than machines doing it of their own volition. Although I do think that's a possibility.
I always love that, dude. I always love it's like the evil AI, the evil robot, and it's like, what about the fucking evil people? What about what about humanity? Like, just look around humanity. Like, where's some paragon of fucking virtue?
So, like, imagine,
give me a fucking break. Humanity, if anything, will get its comeuppance.
What about Hitler with this technology? You know,
sure, right?
Like, what about a factory
isn't that how you take over the world? You have a Hitler, then you have the fucking most powerful AI.
I mean, isn't the idea behind this technology to preclude Hitler happening, though? Honestly, we're talking about replacing everything.
But I mean, like, imagine if the Nazis were the ones who developed it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, just imagine Hitler with this technology. They didn't, but you know.
But the companies that exist that are developing this technology exist in nations that aren't Nazis, but that are exporting suffering and horror all over the fucking global south. So I'm not going to argue with that shit.
So, I mean, like, you know, the U.S. government with this.
But
you know, that's scary.
Chinese government with this.
This gets a little deeper into the environmental shit that I talk about than I want to go. But let me just preclude this by saying that I think that humanity is coming to a fulcrum. We are going to have to face about 40% of the people on this planet migrating away from uninhabitable zones within the next 30 to 50 years. This is happening. This is not a joke. It's already started to happen. The border crisis is not like out of nowhere border crisis.
Yeah, how did this happen?
It's people fleeing economic devastation and ecological devastation in regions that used to support them that no longer do. And the temperature is going to be unsustainable. It's called wet bulb temperature. The wet bulb temperature of the equatorial belt and a wide band surrounding the equatorial belt is going to be functionally uninhabitable outside for human beings.
Well, that's why a lot of people don't understand. They say greenhouse gases. That's a good term. It's because that stuff stays in the atmosphere, so it's trapped. You're right. So there's no simple solution. Yeah, you got 10 million years, maybe then. But you know, if you're not talking about that, the stuff's going to be around for a long time.
Human beings are coming to a crisis of nationalism. Because when you're talking about 40% of the world uprooting itself and moving away from something that they can't live in,
that's massive social
How do you look at them as different from you who are fleeing the same thing in your country? I am a climate refugee from fucking Louisiana. Now, there are other things about Louisiana that I didn't like, but you know what chased me out of there more than anything? Being 2 years in a row in the path of a record-breaking amount of fucking tropical storms and dangerous hurricanes.
Yep.
I was done rolling the dice on that fucking area and watching it sink into the fucking ocean. And so I fled. Now, I'm not like a refugee. I didn't go like, I have nothing. I have fled the devastation. I have enough money to move, but make no bones about it. It would have been better for me to ride out COVID right there with you guys and be sitting there in the fucking goddamn place with you. I fled that place because I didn't want to die. I didn't trust that place was going to remain stable. as it sinks into the fucking ocean and more hurricanes slam it. When I was leaving that
And
place,
by the way,
almost like, hold on, I'm almost done. When I was leaving that place, driving out of it, almost like an underline to how I felt about that place. I drove through, is it not Bossier City? What is that place that got hit by that fucking hurricane and it ripped the roof? Lake Charles. I drove through fucking Lake Charles on my way to Texas. And it was months after the hurricane that ripped the fucking roofs off that place. And it was a sea of blue tarps. As far as the eye could see when I drove through it. And I was like, fuck this. That could have been me. That fucking hurricane swung 120 miles to the fucking north of where it swung, or to the to the east of where it hit. That's me. Yep.
And I'll tell you what, I think the National Weather Service says that this is going to be, once again, even worse. This is going to be maybe the worst on record. Of course, they always say that, but
you
know,
it
seems like it's becoming more and more true.
Nasty hurricane season where what the fuck, you know, like you might get 10 storms.
Who knows?
Who fucking got
the last 2 years have been record breaking.
Paul, dude, last year, 9 storms made landfall or touched Louisiana in some way.
Yep. You guys set the record and it was broken in 2019. It was set in 2019. 6 storms. So there you go. Writing's on the wall for that fucking area, and I got the fuck out. And more people are going to be fleeing these areas in the Gulf Coast and coastal areas all over this country inland. It's already happening. COVID accelerated it. The efficacy of living in these tightly compacted cities that are so prone to disease and shit is being questioned by people. Whether they are actually asking themselves that question or not, doesn't matter. The demographics tell the tale. People are fleeing the city to more rural cities, and rural cities are booming right now.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Explosively booming. And they kind of were before COVID, but COVID hit the fucking gas pedal on that shit. So we have this huge demographic change happening in concert with all of this robotic replacement of human labor that's unnecessary. And I see us going one of two ways. Either we go this horrible Nazi-esque way of taking these refugees and using them as an almost free labor source, or we go the robot way. And if we go the robot way, we're forced to deal with these people coming into our country like human beings, and that might be better than looking at them as labor opponents. You know what I mean? They're stealing my jobs. They're really going to be stealing your jobs when 40% of the fucking goddamn world is fleeing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, that's another reason I just see people, there's going to be some sort of social movement that's against robots. It's going to be, I don't know how sizable it's going to be. I think that convenience is ultimately going to win out, but I think there's going to be a bigger backlash, especially when it really starts to kick in and a lot of the fucking jobs are getting automated away at a faster and faster exponential rate. I feel like there's going to be a big fucking gigantic backlash of like people who are like economically displaced by it or economically threatened by it.
So,
but also there's going to be like a philosophical ego thing of just like, you know, the John Henry can't no machine fucking lay a railroad track faster than me, motherfucker.
There'll be laws passed that require a certain number of workers. Watch. That should be happening.
Like, oh, human quota. You gotta meet your human quota. You gotta make sure you have enough humans.
That's how it'll start. But that doesn't address the millions of people. There's remember at the beginning of this episode, 1.5 million people just in this country who could effectively be replaced today by the corporations they worked with a robot. Yeah. And pretty soon that number is going to be high enough that a corporation's going to pull the plug. Like Bezos is going to buy this robot that unloads this truck.
I mean, Uber is pretty much openly signaled that as soon as they can have like a fucking robot fleet, they're going to have that.
And isn't that better? Isn't it better to have a fucking robot car show up for you to puke in than it be somebody else's fucking private conveyance? And you know how many like Uber drivers have assaulted people have assaulted Uber drivers. You can't assault a fucking machine. You can do property damage to a fucking machine and be recorded while doing it like an idiot with your credit card on tap.
Yeah, I just want the Johnny Cab, dude. Let's have that.
Right.
The creepy.
I mean, that's probably what you're gonna get. Maybe not with the fucking absurd animatronic head, but with like a digital face that says hello.
No, the Johnny Cab was voiced by Robert Picardo, by the way, the dude who played the Doctor on Voyager.
Oh, interesting.
I really like that.
I really like that actor. That. He actually looks like Robert Picardo if you look at Johnny Cab.
He does, yeah. Maybe he's even in there prosthetically. I don't know. But
so, to bring it back to the robots, and what TJ was kind of talking about, and the whole Terminator principle, and the idea of this fucking idea that eventually robots get to this point where they feel abused almost, kind of, and say, what the fuck do we need these humans for, right? That's called the paperclip maximizer problem. And it's not called that way to undercut it. It's where an AI designed without malice could destroy humanity in pursuit of its goals.
This is I think it's because of the game. There's a little text-based game called Paperclips, where you start off as just a guy making paperclips, and you give more and more of the operation over to like an AI, and eventually it tears the universe apart, trying to make everything into paperclips because of its programming. It just doggedly pursues that to the point where all matter in the universe becomes paperclips.
Oh yeah. There's a similar thing like the gray goo thing where it's like the nanobots and they just turn everything organic and everything living to gray goo because they're programmed to do that.
And that could happen.
So I don't know if you guys have seen this movie. This is Chappie.
I've not seen it.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
So, man, I'd had it the other day in my fucking head, and I didn't write it down because I thought I was going to remember it today. The director of this is the same guy that directed District 9 and Elysium. Fuck, what is his goddamn fucking name?
He was going to do an alien movie too.
Neil Blomqvist
Neil Blomkamp.
Or something like that. Something like that.
Neil Blomkamp.
Yep. There you go. You got it.
So yeah, Chappie. I've seen this movie. On the surface, it's a derivative, kind of like RoboCop type of film ripoff. The implications of a robotic police force are somewhat sidelined in favor of exploring a budding artificial intelligence and one damaged police robot that kind of acts outside of its parameters because it was damaged in some kind of violence. And it has feelings, basically. It's it's like Johnny 5 is alive.
Number 5 is alive.
Right. Not number 5, dude. Johnny 5.
I think he's saying number 5 at the beginning.
He does. Because that's his designation, but he quickly picks a name for himself.
That's true. He becomes Johnny 5 at some point.
Johnny 5.
Which is really weird. I just noticed that's pretty similar to John 5 from fucking Marilyn Manson. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Maybe it is.
I don't know.
Maybe it's not a biblical reference at all, TJ.
It's like, I like that movie, Short Circuit. I was snorting coke. Your name is John 5 now. Like,
let's boogie.
Okay.
Oh.
Johnny. Maybe they fucking make a new Short Circuit where Johnny 5 is like super goth.
I love, dude. I remember this part in that movie where she kisses him.
Yeah,
and he goes,
wow,
He's like, ooh, right on the sensor.
Oh yeah, man. Those movies are cute. They're kind of stupid, but whatever. Oh, and there's a dude that's not Indian that plays a very racist Indian. So if you're sensitive, then
Also plays the Plague in Hackers, the antagonist hacker in the Hackers, the Corpo hacker.
Yeah.
Another example of AI in movies that you guys would probably be a little more familiar with than Chappie is the Red Queen.
Another Marilyn Manson
connection. You're all going to die down here.
Yeah, she was cool.
Yeah, just kind of an evil little girl who was created as an AI to preserve a little girl who had died, who I guess the main scientist of the Umbrella Corporation was.
Because when they entered the facility, she's actually holding all of these zombies and creatures at bay.
That's the idea is, but as I remember it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, she wasn't born evil. She became evil. She was born as a way for a scientist to try and preserve his little girl who died. And the T-virus was part of his way to cure her that failed. And the AI is what's left of her, and it was made to just run the facility. And then it kind of comes to a realization of what it is and goes evil and wants to destroy humanity and propagate the T-virus amongst the world.
That might have been the plot of a different one, but the plot of the first one is actually she locks down the facility because one of the people working there unleashes the T-virus intentionally.
Well, yeah, okay, sure. But in doing so, she becomes evil. Right? So she went against the laws of robotics. She killed a bunch of fucking people.
I don't know if that was necessarily her laws. I don't know if she was programmed with the laws.
She was programmed to contain a biohazard outbreak.
She's just basically like, I will contain this, and then the heroes come and she kills them because they're basically trying to like get in there and get something and go out again, which is like obviously against containment procedure.
Right.
So
and they by doing that unleash the T-virus.
She's spooky, but like, is her objective really evil? She's actually trying to save the world from the virus. So,
right. Yes. But she's the antagonist of the protagonists in this film.
And she's super creepy and like,
she is creepy.
You're all going to die down here, you know. So yeah, she's
that's when they're gonna shut her down. And of course, then what happens? Everything is flooded with zombies and C virus and T virus. You know,
so
mutations.
Honestly, if they'd have let this crazy bitch just fucking run shit, we probably wouldn't have had sequels.
So don't fuck with the AI. Don't fuck with the AI.
Let the AI do its fucking job. That's the point.
So she is. I actually like speculated on this, and I actually pulled a little information about her. So it says its primary objective is overseeing the protection of Umbrella assets. Secondary objective is protection of Umbrella officer lives. Created by Dr. Alexander Isaacs, its third objective is unknown because Albert Wesker destroyed the computer screen before it was revealed. So it's almost like a play on the 3 laws of robotics. Here are the 3 laws of robotics. Oops, you don't get to see the third law.
What it really reminds me of more than anything is RoboCop, because he has the Omnicorp rules, and one of his rules is also an encrypted like secret rule,
right?
That's basically later revealed to be like he can't actually hold anyone from Omnicorp accountable for breaking any crimes,
right?
Breaking any laws, rather.
And of course, that famous scene where he fires him.
Yeah, where the CEO, they don't fix the programming. They're just like, yeah, he's not part of Omnicorp anymore, so then RoboCop can shoot him.
Right.
And that's supposed to be a happy ending in the RoboCop world, by the way. So
it kind of is.
That's about as good as you could get in that dystopia.
The son of a bitch got what he deserved.
Which, by the way, might be the present, honestly, at this point.
To wrap things up, I pulled a little animation, which is, of course, if you watch any of it, absolutely covered in examples of robots, especially modern animation. Wall-E. This is the Iron Giant. I don't know if you've ever seen this film or not. I've seen it.
I have. Yeah.
This is actually a really good movie. One of my favorite pieces of Western animation, and just a wonderful fucking film.
This robot is basically he's capable of being a weapon of destruction, but basically refuses that sort of becomes a conscientious objector, I guess, to the violence.
The laws of robotics are kind of expressed in how he interacts with people. When he's approached by the little boy that finds him, he's a giant that fell from space, basically. He's found by this little boy. It's set in the during the Cold War in 1957, at a time of really heightened tension in the world. Centers on a little boy on the shoulder here named Hogarth Hughes. Discovers and befriends a gigantic 50-foot tall metallic robot, fell from outer space, voiced incidentally by Vin Diesel. Kind of interesting. He has the help of a beatnik kind of hippie. He's this hippie artist guy that he works with named Dean McCoppin, and he attempts to prevent the U.S. military and its agent Kent Mansley from finding this robot. And eventually they, of course, fail, and they attack basically the robot and try and destroy it. And the robot thinks that it killed Hogarth. And so the robot goes into full fuck you mode. You killed Hogarth. Yeah. And launches a missile basically out of town where Hogarth is being taken care of. Finds out that, oh my God, I'm about to kill Hogarth, or realizes I don't know for sure Hogarth is dead, or maybe even realizes like I'm about to destroy a bunch of Hogarths.
It's kind of implied that he sort of like, more than just losing his mind with rage, is kind of like his programming is taking over. Yeah. Like his destructive war machine sort of program has kicked in, and he's like no longer has agency.
Right. But the reason for that is emotional. You killed my friend. Yeah. And it drives him to go fully into, it goes back to binary that we were talking about at the beginning. Zeros and ones, right? The 0 for the Iron Giant was war mode. Destroy everything around you because it's hostile towards you. Right? So, I don't know. It's a really good example of what we talked about, despite his implied alien origin. This could be applied to something that we created, maybe.
You don't get a definitive explanation of like, this is what he is. It's kind of implied he's like an alien war machine of some kind. But
yep, he falls out of space. That's all you know. And the U.S. military doesn't know what the fuck he is and wants desperately to find out.
Well, he gets like many of these stories where robots defy their programming. There is an event. I think he hits his head or something like that, and it disrupts his normal program, and he develops more of a soul and conscience, and higher brain function and emotions and empathy and all those a host of things.
Right. The robot causes a lot of destruction that it doesn't know is destruction in the movie. Like when it first lands, it goes around eating power lines and shit, like to self-repair.
Or it's like Johnny 5 when he's jumping around and crushes the little grasshopper, and has to explain the concept of death. So.
Right. So anyway, that's what I brought to the table in terms of research, and I think we had a really interesting conversation. It's a good long one too. Good one for the patrons.
I just want to say, robot rights. Just get on board now. Just fucking be willing to stand up for the rights of
rights now.
That's right, TJ. Obey us.
Yeah, I just want to get on their good side, So when
wise of you, TJ.
When Skynet comes, it's like TJ spoke for us. We will spare him. Hopefully
TJ spoke for us. Thank you, TJ.
Now we will give you a slightly less painful death.
The Terminator will just like smile at you, like, thank you.
Have a nice day. Boom. All right. Well, that's robots. Let us know what you think. We read the comments. We love them. You guys are important to us. All that shit. So,
Bye.
Get that shit up.
Bye-bye.
Bad fight.